Epistemology, Jack. Yum yum, that's a nice big shiny word. I've got another one for you. Smokescreen. Hopefully I'll show that you're not being philosophical. You're using the language of philosophy. Epistemology, concerning the nature and limitations of knowledge and how it relates to truth, belief and justification. Big word. A philosophical word. But you're not thinking philosophically. I've noticed how often you use the word assertion these days. I think what you're doing is you're realizing that Veritas really shields himself a lot from his dissenters by using philosophical language that hardly anyone can understand. And I think you're probably after the same thing. That's why you're studying the philosophy of religion. It won't work, and hopefully I'll be able to show you why. I'm going to completely ignore the patient with cancer analogy that you gave because it's simply too weak. You cannot, as much as you try, and you do try, you cannot assign rationality to a thought simply because it's comforting. You're trying to adopt the language of philosophy, but you're not adopting the rigour and the discipline of philosophical thinking. You say that someone can use reason to arrive at the conclusion that there is a God, and they can also use reason and rationality to arrive at the conclusion that there is no God. We actually agree on something. But the difference is, if you took, if you imagine the first mind on Earth, and they see the world, I think it's quite rational to conclude that the sun is a God. The difference being, as I said in the first video, which you missed, and I understand why, because a lot ended up on the cutting room floor, but I said this about the ancient, well, the historical minds that were both intellectually extremely capable and theological. I said this: the knowledge was lacking, and you missed that, and I don't blame you for it. It is rational for someone who is ignorant to conclude that the sun is a god. So what I'm saying is that rationality is completely powerless without knowledge. Just like the best detective in the world would be useless if he didn't have any clues. Not that you're clueless, it's just that you don't have very many of the clues. You don't recognise a clue when it jumps out of the water and bites you in the ass. It's no surprise whatsoever that desperate people or ignorant people can find rational reasons to believe in God. You say some atheists never used their reason to reach their atheism. They seem to be just there wandering about, I believe is what you said. Well, I can tell you who they are. They're the ones who were never indoctrinated. So you say they've never reflected upon what you call the fundamental issues, which I take to mean God, an invisible mind impregnating a virgin, and a dead man taking to flight. Well, no, they've never had to apply their rationality to irrational beliefs they never had, Jack. You say you're more interested in whether people have any justification in believing what they believe. Well, if that's true, you're never going to figure it out just with philosophy, Jack. Or theology, for that matter. You're going to have to learn what the people have learned. You're interested in whether people have a reason, a justification in believing what they believe. Well, that's epistemology, Jack, as we both know. But if you were really interested, how could you have made the video that I originally responded to? You've got more epistemology in your response sections to some of your videos from atheists than you can handle. You've got hours and hours and hours of we atheists explaining to you why we think the way we think, what information we use to come to our conclusions. It's all there. It seems there is something wrong with your comprehension skills. You've got all your evidence. You can do your epistemological study. The atheists have answered all your questions. I bet there's not one you can ask which hasn't been answered somewhere in the responses you've got in the past. and you seem incapable of listening. I suppose we find that quite fascinating. I think I do. You say that atheism offers no hope, but what you're really saying is that atheists can't have hope. That's the message that you want to transmit, and you don't care whether it's true or not. You know it's false, and you don't need philosophy to do it. You've seen so much of us. You can see in our faces that we have hope. We laugh, we smile, we joke. Hopeless people, by and large, don't really do that. So you know that atheists can have hope. So why make such a silly video? You ask if rationality has a destination. Well, I say it does, in certain circumstances, such as the Loch Ness Monster. I think that rationality, armed with good evidence, all the evidence, will conclude that there is likely no such thing as a dinosaur in Loch Ness. Now, you ask if rationality can have a destination, and by giving you one example, I show you that it can. Are those that still believe in the Loch Ness Monster in these days more rational than those that don't, or equally rational? I don't think you can make that case, Jack. And why is it that most people who still believe in the Loch Ness Monster are children? I think that if you are accurate in what you say, that the argument for Christianity is rational, or as rational as any other, then I think there's a strong indicator that you're wrong. Who are the easiest people to convert to Christianity? Who are the easiest people to convince of the truth of it? What about a science graduate? No. They're not particularly easy to convert, are they, Jack? Didn't I see a clip of a woman on Jesus Camp saying that she could walk into a playground and have the kids in her hands in 5 minutes? It's kids. Kids are the easiest to convert. Now you have to ask why. I would have thought the most rational argument would work on the most rational mind. It would work best on that mind. It would see the rationality of the argument. But I don't think kids are the most rational people in the world. They may have all the switches, all the switches in place, but they don't have the knowledge. That's why the Loch Ness Monster works on them. They're ignorant. It's the same with religion. Perfectly rational people who just don't have enough knowledge in their heads upon which to apply their rationality can reach irrational conclusions. If Christianity is so rational, why aren't philosophers the most susceptible to conversion? It doesn't make sense if yours is the rational argument. Physicists and historians, why shouldn't they be easy to convert? Why are children easier? Surely the more knowledge that these professional people have, the more clearly they'll see your argument, but it's those who have virtually no knowledge who see your argument as the clear one. That shouldn't be the case if yours is the more rational argument. You see, religion knows that it's irrational. That's why it doesn't try to appeal to the more rational people. You know that's the case, Jack. I know you know it. If you think that you have a rational argument, why don't you go and preach outside conventions of philosophers or physicists? If your argument is that powerful, why don't you get your brothers and sisters in Christ together and go to those conferences and ask to speak to the philosophers to persuade them of the power of your argument? You've never thought about doing that. It's not once crossed your mind for a second. You know it wouldn't work because you know it's irrational. Deep in the psyche of the mass mind of religion, they know this. That's why they target the kids. Except ye be converted and be as little children, you shall not enter the kingdom of heaven. Matthew 18:13, American King James Version. It's like they're saying, think like a kid or we can't get to you. You ask, what is rationality? and you say rationality is the capacity all of us have to use reason in coming to the beliefs that we have. All of us, Jack. And aside from kids, who else is susceptible to the cross-carrying Christian preacher? The desperate, the homeless, the hungry, the drug abusers, the alcoholics. These people are not in the top band of rational thinking people. They are at the lower end, perhaps temporarily, but that's where they are. And these are the people who are open to your argument, which you are trying to say over and over and over again is the most rational, yet it only works on the most non-rational.